Hey everybody, it is Friday night and I'm in here doing some work, actually with my Gourami tank, but we're going to talk about this tank that we're looking at, which is my garden tank here, in a moment. But I actually got distracted right as I started shooting the video. I saw one of my plants moving across the tank over here, and I know there's a ton of glare on the glass right now, but if you see that crayfish right there, he was just crawling along. Let's see if I can block the glare with my body. Oh look, there's my Chinese algae eater sticking his face out right there. But I just saw the crayfish crawling along, dragging that piece of Java fern. There's another crayfish lying in the back. That one almost doesn't even look like it's alive anymore. And I did find a dead one on the floor of the tank yesterday afternoon, and it's gone now, so that's pretty much probably been devoured. So I just got everybody fed down here while I'm doing my water change on my Gourami tank. I was kind of hoping we'd get to see a little more action with the crayfish coming out, but not really. I'll keep my eyes open as the video progresses. If we see anything interesting, we can always come back to it. So while we're waiting on my Gourami tank over here to do its water change thing, I wanted to talk briefly about my garden tank. It's still kind of in the middle of being changed over from what it used to look like versus what it still looks like. I don't want to change it too rapidly because, for example, if I get in here and start moving stuff, look at the way my creeping Jenny is growing down onto the rocks, and you know, that's giving it the appearance of time and stability and longevity, and you know, so I don't really want to just keep changing it every week when I get bored with the way it looks. So I'm kind of letting it sit, but at the same time I'm kind of thinking about what I want to do with it here in the very near future. This of course is my catnip. I move that around when I want it out of my way. I just pick it up and move it. That's not officially part of the tank, but this is a great light, so that's where I keep my catnip because that grows best right here. The thing that is actually driving me to want to do something about this tank is, not long ago I found my last remaining crab on the floor in my hallway in the other room. So you can probably tell I've got this piece of Lexan over the one end of the tank where the rocks are a little closer to the surface, and I figured that would stop him from being able to get out. On this end, the filter intake is way up off the bottom, so he'd literally have to swim up to the filter intake and then climb up and climb out through the filter and all that stuff. So I thought I was safe. But I came in this morning, and if you look in here, you'll notice what looks like a toad's house. And I thought, there's no way I have a toad in here this whole time and did not know it. So what I've determined is this little burrow right here is actually a crab. The crab, the only one I've got left, must have gotten out and got into that and was digging and burrowing. I found it before in another one of the planters when I had some daylilies down here. I found the crab burrowing in the daylily. So my suspicions are probably correct, and that kind of confirms it for me that these crabs, and if you look at the habitat I have them set up in, it's almost entirely water, but it does allow access to the surface. The crab can crawl around on the rocks if it wants to. So that's not really the same as being able to crawl around on land. And I think, and again, this sort of confirms it, I think the crabs need mud or sand or something like that. They're a mangrove crab, so they live in muddy mangrove swampy areas, and I'm sure they root through the mud and burrow and sift through the sand looking for food and all that sort of stuff. So I really need to get this habitat set up more appropriately for this crab. If I'm going to keep it, I ought to keep it in, you know, at least a halfway appropriate habitat, which is what brings us to this big bag of play sand right here. I've got another 20-gallon long tank in the other room, and I've got some space behind this tank. Of course, this tank can get turned, sideways. I can even, elevate a tank and then lower a tank, and we've already got another tank down here, or whatever. I can, I haven't even started letting the creative juices get flowing as far as what I can actually do back here and how I can change this around. But I've got use of this small table that, again, just has the bag of sand sitting on at the moment. But another 20 long will give me a tank that I can basically have a beach, all the way down, and then have some water at one end, and I can put a few rocks on it, and that'll keep the sand from, leveling out, and I can ultimately make more of a habitat, well suited for the crabs to live in, rather than a habitat here for the fish. So this little garden tank area might morph into 3 tanks, all sort of interconnected, even though they're not really technically connected. They just sort of visually appear to be. And I'll have to get in here and do some cleaning. You can see these sort of clean areas right there. I knocked off some really, really thick mats of green cyanobacteria. I mean, it was like chunks of it. I literally picked them off like big globs of it. And so that's why that looks a little odd like that. It looks a little unnatural. Let me step out of the light here a little bit. And then if we look, you probably can't see them. Well, you might be able to see them a little bit. Let's see if I can get my finger in here. Right up under this edge. Now my finger's washing the color and everything out. Right up under that edge, though, you can see a ton of snail eggs. So the snails I put in this tank, in order to keep the algae under control to some degree, are definitely breeding and doing their thing in there the way snails are wont to do. So we got nothing to worry about with having plenty of snails going on in there. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up because my Gourami tank is empty enough as far as I'm concerned. While I'm doing this tonight, I'm probably going to get in here. If you can see this frond right here, hasn't even made it to the surface, but it's definitely going to reach the surface. It hasn't even finished, unfurling yet, and it's already up and out of the tank. So that one will come out. Maybe 1 or 2 of these larger ones might come out. That sure is a pretty plant, though. See, these are really, really big. That's like an umbrella in the tank as far as blocking light. So I'll probably get in there and remove a few of those. So there you go, everybody. There's your Friday night video. For those of you who are not long-term viewers of my channel, it's the middle of summer. I tend to do a lot less in here in the fish room when the weather's so nice. I've been outside all day. It's almost 9 o'clock and I'm still in the middle of a water change. The lights usually get turned off between 9:30 and 10. I haven't even finished feeding everybody. I got over the first round. Now I got to go around and put the floating food in. I've done the algae wafers for everybody. Now I got to go around and do the floating food and finish up with this water change. So as the weather begins to shift and the seasons change and the weather gets colder, after the autumn rolls around in a couple of months, you'll be getting a lot more fish videos and a lot less outdoor videos, and just a lot less time being spent outdoors means a lot more time for me to be in here tinkering around with different stuff and shooting video and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go. Once again, I'm going to say make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss anything. You never know what it's going to be with me. Thanks again for watching. This one here that we're looking at is my 55-gallon Gourami tank. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.